Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make. Hey guys, Drew here from Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond, and we got Eric back after a long hiatus because I did a couple more videos with some other members of my Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond Facebook page. Did my top 5 Christopher Nolan movie with Mr. Jackson Harbor, which was really fun. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't seen it, but that's exciting. I need to watch that.
Yeah, that one was really fun. And then did a Batman spoiler review for the Batman with
Well, I can't watch that yet because I haven't seen the Batman.
It's really good. It was really good.
That's what I hear.
It was almost what I needed when I wanted it to be and when I needed it to be, and that was just about it.
Okay.
And I'll just say one more thing just regarding that. Because everybody kind of knows my thoughts and feelings about the movie. Like I told my best friend yesterday on a text, this movie feels more like Batman than any of the other Batman movies, than like say The Dark Knight. But I can watch The Dark Knight more. The Dark Knight trilogy more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
So yeah, how have you been, man?
Been good. Just been hanging back, trying to catch up on some things I've missed movie-wise. That's about it. I haven't seen the Batman. I need to go see it. Been meaning to. I just haven't had a chance. May go see it this weekend.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Well, actually, it's kind of appropriate because we're doing Dracula, and Batman was heavily inspired by Dracula. And then also, we got another Bat-related superhero movie coming out this weekend with Morbius. With Jared Leto, which I'm pretty excited for.
I don't know. I'm on the fence about. I don't know. I saw the first trailer and I was like, okay, but then I just don't know.
Well, I don't know too much about Morbius in the comics. I remember him from the animated series from the '90s, and this one looks like more faithful to the comics. But before we get into our Dracula review, the movie that you guys voted for out of the random name generator. Let's talk about some horror, sci-fi, fantasy, superhero media that you've been consuming since the last time we talked. And now we talked about this over Facebook Messenger. We're going to kind of save on time. We're going to limit it to 2. So like your 2 biggest highlights from the last time we talked to each other.
Okay. All right. So 2 biggest ones. All right, sweet. So 2 biggest ones I've seen since then is I finally got to see the latest Spider-Man. I saw No Way Home, and it's a lot of fun. It may be my least favorite of the Tom Holland Spider-Mans, though.
Disagree. I think Homecoming.
I don't know. I mean, I like Homecoming. This kind of gets into spoilers a bit if you don't know anything about the movie.
Well, yeah,
itself.
I mean, it's kind of.
We won't go into spoilers. I would say though, yeah, the other 2 felt really grounded in sort of reality, into like a sort of nuts and bolts. Technology is based around all that. Like he makes his web shooters, the vultures, all that. And this one, since we're dealing with alternate universes, we start flowing out into like Sandman's there now and stuff like that. And like, I don't know, there was just some things that I thought was going to be like a little cleaner. Like I don't know what the Goblin's motivation was, because he helped Peter, and they just like some of that stuff gets a little fuzzy. But at the end of the day, it was still a lot of fun. And I guess the other thing I've watched recently that would be of note would be I finally sat down and watched Gerald's Game on Netflix. What's his name? Midnight Mass. Mike Flanagan, Stephen King. Stephen King film. I hadn't seen it. This was the first time. I'd started it a while back and I never finished it. So I finally sat down and finished it. And I will say it is really good until its resolution, which gets a little weird. And if we talk, if I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but it's just, it feels like a giant exposition dump. Like after like the climax, there's a lot. They do a lot of unpacking in like the last 20 minutes. Like it almost feels like that's another act of the movie.
Right.
Does that make? And I guess it may work better in novel. I don't know. I understand why they did it, and it makes sense, but it just felt strange because everything else was so lean and mean. Like we're just in the room. The only flashbacks are like through like a dream sequence or something like that. They just pack a lot in that last like 10 minutes or something. It's weird.
So
what?
You remember the big Frankenstein dude from Adam's Family?
Mm-hmm.
The Orc or whatever his name is? That's the Night Stalker in Geralt's game.
Oh.
Yeah, the big, that creepy guy that like had visiting her. And
that's
the same actor that played Lurch.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Flanagan used him again in Doctor Sleep.
Yeah, so some things a couple things I've been watching since the last time we talked to each other. I watched another Mike Flanagan movie as well. A little movie called Hush with his wife Kate Siegel. I actually really like it. I really, really liked it. And I'm not a big home invasion kind of guy. Like I've still never seen The Strangers because that shit freaks me out. I really liked Hush. I thought it was, it could have been your classic run-of-the-mill home invasion movie, but because it's Mike Flanagan, like it was just amazing.
A solid two-hander.
Yeah,
which is two-handers, just two actors in a movie. But yeah.
Well, technically 3 or 4 because the actress that played Bev from Midnight Mass was in there.
Right. But for the most part, it's 2 people.
Completely night and day because Bev, who's like basically the Christian version of a Karen, and then you have her character in Hush, and she's like this, the very nice neighborly person, the Kate Siegel. I also watched the latest Guillermo del Toro movie, Nightmare Alley.
I've seen Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, I really liked it.
I liked it. I don't think it's his best movie. I think the production. Do I know?
I haven't seen too much of his stuff.
I mean, Pan's Labyrinth to me is hands down probably the best Guillermo del Toro film, but it's good. Production design's amazing.
Yeah, I like Nightmare Alley. I thought it was a good, solid kind of film noir movie. Not exactly horror, but there was like horror elements.
Right.
The thing that really got me was Willem Dafoe's character kept talking about a geek, and I have to look up what that meant. Because somebody that's into like nerdy stuff.
Sure.
Geek, like a carnival geek is someone that does like weird stuff or like contorts his bodies or whatever. Well, that's the thing about that movie was like I didn't know. And I was really kind of wondering where we're going to go with it until at that very end. I'm like, oh, that was cool with that final shot. I thought Bradley Cooper should have been nominated for this movie because I thought he was great.
I thought he did a really good job, and I'm not the biggest Bradley Cooper fan.
I really love Bradley Cooper. He's like one of my favorite actors working right now.
I think he's good in some things, and I think he's Bradley Cooper in some things, to me at least.
Especially earlier in his career, didn't really get the Mary Stevenson subplot. That was a little weird.
Yeah. But it felt a little like truncated. Felt like there was, in honesty, Nightmare Alley felt like it was a 3-hour movie that they mashed into 2.5 hours. Like it felt like it should have been longer in some spots. Like there were parts of it that I felt were a little rushed, and I felt like some stuff like they took their time with like the early stuff at the carnival, almost to the detriment of some things that kind of happened later in some ways. But
it was crazy like how misleading both those trailers were. Because the first trailer made me like a monster movie. And then the second trailer made me think it was gonna be like more psychological thriller. It was really neither. It was like basically a noir movie with horror elements in it.
Right. And that's what a lot of people I talked to a lot of friends who had watched it were expecting like a more supernatural movie, because I guess they had seen the trailers or at least known about it, and they kind of went in like expecting like something crazy to happen in the third act or something to sort of like throw everything off kilter, and it just never becomes what it is, and that's not what the movie is.
But anyways, man, let's get on to why we're making this video. Like I said, you guys voted for it, and for a random name generator. We're gonna do the 1931 Bela Lugosi Dracula. So, how do you find out about Dracula? Just as a whole, not just this movie.
I mean, I think it honestly came to Dracula through this movie, like through all of those 1930s Universal horror pictures. I've never read the book. I've never read Bram Stoker's book. So like finding out about like this character and then just the larger vampire lore that kind of came out of sort of that book. All started, I think, from this. Like this is probably the first I've ever heard or seen of it, but saw it when I was a kid. And this is actually the first time I've seen this movie in probably like 10 years. Like it's been a long time.
Yeah, I watch this movie every year as far as like the trifecta. That's how I kicked off my my October horror movie watching season is Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman.
I will say that this is of those of like the Wolfman, Frankenstein, Creature of Black Lagoon, and Dracula. This one's near the bottom of my list.
But I remember one year, I think it was like 2003 on Halloween, they showed like that trifecta, like Dracula, Wolfman, and Frankenstein. And I remember watching this movie, and I just remember Winfield getting that paper cut, and then Dracula being attracted by it because he's a vampire. I always remember that part.
Yeah.
And then the carriage scene, that horse and buggy scene, where it's Dracula as a driver, and he like turns to the back. I always remember that scene too as a kid.
Sure.
But yeah, let's get on to the review of it. So the movie opens with the title sequence, and we have an excerpt from Swan Lake, the classic which probably people more associate with the movie Black Swan than Dracula. But to me, I'll always think of Dracula when I hear that.
Same. Like as soon as I hear that music, that's what I think of. Which is a weird thing too. Like rewatching this movie, is that there's not a lot of music in it other than that opening title card.
And then the theater scene too. There's some music in there.
Right. Yeah. There's some music in the theater scene. There's music in that opening title card, but the rest of the movie is pretty just natural sound. Which is unnerving, and also it sort of takes away some of the scariness for me in parts.
Yeah.
I always remember it being more musical for some reason. I don't know why it struck me this time about
honestly, it. Like I prefer the musicless version instead of the Philip Seymour Glass I don't know if you ever listened to that version of it, but Philip Seymour Glass wrote like a whole a bunch of music for this movie, and I didn't like it that much.
Well, Philip Glass is an acquired taste to begin with. Like he's very
beautiful music.
Avant-garde.
Like he does music throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I think in certain parts, like it only works without music. I feel like.
Sure. No, I agree. I mean, there are parts that are creepier without music,
right?
But I think it probably could have some music in parts where there's no music.
Right. I go back to the Swan Lake thing. I think it really sets the mood because it's very elegant and beautiful. But it's also very gothic and dark, which is a good reflection of the Dracula character, especially this version, because this is very much different than like what Bram Stoker would have how he described Dracula, or how Count Orlok was portrayed in the earliest version of Dracula. The earliest surviving version of Dracula was known for a lot too, where he was very much monstrous, like Stoker's version. This is more. I'm actually happy 100th anniversary to Nosferatu. It actually turns 100 this year.
Does he? I know this movie is like 90 years old this year because it came out like 32, right? Which is nuts to me.
Yeah, and I found Nosferatu on Blu-ray for like $10 off Amazon. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get this. It's anniversary. So like Bela Lugosi, because he played them on stage, was like the first very kind of clean cut, kind of like very sexy Dracula. We kind of normally associate with the character. You know, his hair's slicked back and the cape. And he
The
does this
cape got that
thing.
like, yep.
Yeah, and he has his
Which he
collar.
had really long, which he has really long fingers, which work really well for him. I watched most of the Spanish version of it. Have you heard of the Spanish version
Yeah,
of this production
yeah, it's
that they shot?
technically better on a tactical scale.
It's in some ways yes, and in some ways it's the exact same movie. The Spanish actor in that version, which they shot simultaneously. So anybody who doesn't know, when they made this movie, they made a Spanish version simultaneously with a whole different cast.
Well, they did it
They
with
shot at night.
movies at the time because they
They,
didn't. Because I don't think they had the technology to do dubs.
sure.
So they get all the interaction. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just kind of
No, you're fine. Yeah. So they shot at night, and like so the Spanish version shot at night and shot all through the night, and then the English version shot during the day. And really, like a lot of the I haven't watched all the Spanish version. I mean, I've seen like the first maybe like 45 minutes, something like that. A lot of it's pretty shot for shot, like exactly the same. The only difference is that the Dracula, who's pretty good, he's got a pretty good wide-eyed scare. His fingers are so short by comparison to like Bela Lugosi's. Like,
I thought he just looked too goofy. He just made too many goofy faces.
oh yeah, that's fair.
That's me. This is pretty historic right here because this is one of the first like sound horror movies for Universal. You actually have I believe the granddaughter or the niece of Carl Laemmle, who was the founder of Universal Studios. You have Carl Laemmle speaking the first lines. And it's an iconic line which he says, "Among the rugged peaks that frown upon the Barca past are found crumbling castles with bygone age." Of course, you have Renfield, I know, in that scene with her and like the horse and buggy. Which is interesting because in Moe's version and also in the novel, it's actually
John.
John the Harker as his partner goes visits Dracula. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So another pastor says that we must reach the end before sundown because it's the night of evil. Yep.
Evil in the land.
Evil.
Yeah. See, okay. Could have used the music score right there because he used just like a.
So they get to the end. The innkeeper tells Renfield not to go to Dracula's castle because he's a vampire. And he comes down at night with his wife to feed off the blood of the living. And then Renfield races off, and he goes anyway.
Sure.
And it's really these two opening scenes that really establishes the sympathy of horror that we're about to witness.
And this is really sort of like setting up sort of like tropes for horror movies going forward. Is that there's some sort of harbinger at the front who's like, "Don't go in there. You're gonna get killed."
Yeah, crazy out.
Whoever it is, 13th. Right, and they don't listen and they go anyway. And he doesn't get killed. He just loses his mind. I guess technically he does die later in the movie, but that's spoilers for anybody who doesn't want to see who hasn't seen this before.
And then we have a woman. I'm assuming it's the innkeeper's wife. Gives Renfield a crucifix. And then we cut to Dracula's castle. Dracula and his wife wake up from their coffins to get ready for Renfield. And you have like freaking like armadillos, rats running everywhere, which is weird. Like rats I get because it's a castle, but freaking armadillo, what is this, like Texas?
I don't know. I guess that's all they had available. I did see that too. I think in the Spanish version there's a possum, which is still just as weird.
Well, I mean, they did do this in California, so I mean,
yeah. I guess whatever they had available to grab, but all in those opening shots, those dolly push-ins that they do, like pushing in through the crypt into that, like all that stuff still looks really good for like 90 years old. Like some amazing like camera work in this movie, and it's like matte paintings. The opening matte painting shot is also pretty amazing, where they're like riding the carriage up before we go inside. Yeah, all that stuff's great. Holds up super well.
Right, and it's interesting that you said that with the armadillo thing that might have been the only thing they had. Believe it or not, Universal Studios was like a B studio at the time. It wasn't like one of the big studios. I think like MGM, like RKO, and like a couple others were like the big studios of the day. But now, like they're like one of the biggest studios now, and they have like one of the highest grossing franchises with Fast and the Furious. But it's crazy to think that like it was a low budget studio at the time, and these were technically B movies.
Oh yeah, and like I mean, like most studios worth their lot, like even like New Line later on, like they built their house on horror movies because they're fairly cheap to make, and they usually almost always make a profit.
Yeah, they're probably like horror is probably like the cheapest like genre to make, that and probably like comedy.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. All you have to do is just and both of them are just about timing. Like that's all it is. Building a scare, building a joke.
Yeah, so we got the Count. He meets Renfield at Bartow Path with a horse and buggy. And then we don't Renfield doesn't allude to the fact that the driver is actually Dracula, but we know the audience that it is Dracula. And probably audiences at the time probably knew. I would imagine.
Probably knew. I mean, yeah, I mean, I can't remember what all Bela Lugosi had been in before this, but we are introduced to him coming out of his crypt before he gets to that carriage ride. So I think they probably set it up.
Right, and this
people who were astute.
Yeah, and there's a weird moment right here, and I mentioned this before. Dracula turns into a bat as he takes Winfield up to the castle, and Renfield doesn't question it at all. He's like, "Holy shit, that must be Dracula!"
Right.
Right.
Or like, why is there a weird bat in front of the carriage now?
Yeah, he never questions it at all. And then Renfield gets to the castle. We're introduced to he gets introduced to Dracula. Was an awesome scene. He descends down a set of staircases, and there's like a cobweb like right behind him. And then so he does I am Dracula, and then he does listen to them, children of the night. And he also comments on the spider in the web, and he said, "Spider spinning his web for the unwary fly. The blood is his life, and that's what vampires do. They spin their little web of seduction, and that's how they get their victims."
Just use those fingers to like hypnotize people, just like a spider would use to like his web to grab them.
And even though this is my least favorite Universal monster movie, my favorite poster, one of my favorite posters of any of the Universal movies is the one where it's Dracula and he's kind of like in this position. He has like the spider web. That is so symbolic. I love that poster.
Oh, it's a great poster. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we learned that Renfield is actually a real estate agent trying to sell Dracula some property in London. So basically, it's a character flaw. In the original, in the novel, most versions, John Harker, like I said, he's still a real estate agent. In North Carolina, because they have to change characters because they didn't get the copyright. It's actually John Hunter, which is funny. I believe in the book, I know in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the movie with Gary Oldman, I believe Renfield worked for the real estate agent that Harker worked for. And he was like the first like victim of Dracula in this story. Like he visited Dracula previously and he got seduction. I believe, don't quote me on that.
I can't remember. I know it's been a while since I've seen the Francis Ford Coppola version. I know that he gets killed in a jail cell later on, and he's played by Tom Waits, but that's about all I remember.
Yeah. So, anyways, we learn that Renfield is a real estate agent trying to sell Dracula some property in London. The Count tells Renfield that he's bringing 3 boxes or coffins with them, which is really weird. And again, Renfield still doesn't catch on to this at all, which is weird.
He's just there to do paperwork, man. He's just like, I gotta do my paperwork. I'll get this vampire to sign paperwork, and then I'm on my way.
Being the good housekeeper or house host, Dracula, he makes some food for Mr. Renfield. Pours him a glass of wine. And I think Renfield asks him why doesn't he drink wine. And then Dracula says he never drinks wine. Renfield gets a paper cut with the tracks Dracula. And that's like before the whole wine thing. I forgot to say that.
Sure. And this is really the only blood in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like there's no like neck wounds or anything like that later on.
They probably use jelly. They probably use jelly for the blood.
I mean, probably so. Or it's just like chocolate syrup. Who knows?
Yeah, I thought they used Psycho.
I mean, chocolate syrup looks like blood on film, especially black and white.
It really does. So anyways, Dracula's of course the trash to it goes over to Renfield's the drink of blood, and you see the crucifix, which makes him back off. The Count leaves his bedroom. Renfield passes out. Dracula's wife gathering around him, and then Dracula comes in from like the balcony or something like that, and he soos them away. Which is interesting because this kind of has a gay implication to it. Because with the whole vampire thing, it's all about seduction and the whole drinking blood is kind of like a metaphor for like sexual intercourse because you're technically exchanging fluids. But then like Dracula sues away his wives, and then he comes in. So like there's a little bit of a gay bisexual implication there, a little bit.
Dracula doesn't discriminate. Dracula's a full-on bisexual. He'll drink anybody.
So, anyways, we cut to a ship. Dracula basically kills the entire ship, and this is just heading to London. So that's how he gets to London. He ties the captain up to a wheel, and he's still like a shadow of that, which is really disturbing. I must have like freaked the fuck out of audiences back in 1931.
Oh yeah.
And then he makes Renfield his slave as he looks for flesh blood in the home of Big Ben.
Yeah. No, the shot looking down when they reveal Renfield like crazy in the gallows.
When he's
yeah. It's the scariest shot in the movie to me.
This performance is so creepy that freaking Alice Cooper wrote a song about this. Or called
Like everyone wants to remember Dracula, and everyone does remember Bela Lugosi from this movie. But and honestly, Renfield's what makes it for me. Like I can't remember the actor's name, but like
Right, Fry.
Yes.
So the Count goes to London. He goes to the theater. He meets Dr. Stewart, who works at a sanitarium. His daughter Mina's friend Lucy, and then Mina's fiance Jonathan Harker, who's like I said, the person that goes to meet Dracula, in the beginning, in the novel. And then they get to talking, all these characters, and then Dracula says to be dead or to die, to really be dead, that must be glorious. There are far things worse waiting man than death. And I wrote down, what does that mean about immortality?
Yeah, what does that mean about immortality?
Yeah, does Dracula secretly hate being immortal?
Maybe. I mean, then maybe that's why he traveled out of Transylvania. He's been stuck in Transylvania for hundreds of years, centuries.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now he's like, I guess I'm gonna go to England.
Right.
Find some new honeys.
And that's why I like the Francis Coppola version of this, because it just the themes a lot more immortality.
Sure.
And stuff like that.
Oh, he's just like out there like comically creeping on them too, like outside of their box. Like, oh hey, I'm here now.
Nobody questions it at all. That's weird.
Yeah, they're just like, it's fine. I guess it was just the that was how like society operated in England at the time.
Well, even like there's even like a creepier theater scene in the Coppola version when like where it's like the early days of like cinema, and then like he drags like Winona Ryder into that theater and like starts sucking her blood. Like that's like ooh, that's creepy. That's like something that could happen in real life.
Oh yeah. Especially they were like watching. Weren't they watching like?
They were watching
like something that. They were watching what?
They were watching like a skin flick.
That's what I was about to say. It's like a softcore like skin flick from like the early aughts or the early turn of the century.
Yeah, it was weird.
Which is something they make, yeah.
Yeah, that was just like, yeah, that was so creepy. That particular moment. But and then it cuts to Mina with Lucy making fun of Dracula, or Lucy is making fun of Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, Mina is making fun of Dracula, rather. But Lucy finds him fascinating. Which is interesting. This does not get explored, obviously, in this version, because it is the 1930s. But if I remember correctly, in the book, and definitely in the Coppola version, Lucy is more open about her sexuality than Mina is.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you
Repressed.
remember, yeah, if you remember, in the Gary Oldman version, Dracula exploits that like a lot.
Oh yeah.
But of course, you can't do that here because
Probably codes and everything. I did. Well, this also brings up like something talking about like, this is not necessarily on topic, but talking about society and everything, and like, they're at the opera and all that sort of stuff. But he doesn't feed on any of those people. These sort of like higher society things that Dracula kind of represents. But he's feeding on the low lives. He's feeding on like the peasants in the town, like the girl handing out like papers and everything. So I wonder if this is like a bigger theme. The bigger theme in this movie is that like the rich feed on the poor in some ways. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just saw that scene. I was like, huh.
Yeah, another thing I read was I can't remember who it was. It was some sort of like philosopher, not philosopher, but some sort of like sociologist. And she was saying that when Dracula was first written, that was like the like around the time of like the New Woman movement. He was saying that Lucy and Mina represents both sides of it. Where Lucy is, like I said, more open about her sexuality, where Mina's not, but she's a lot more intellectual. And both of those sides were both of those things weren't really like was like kind of looked down upon of women at the time, or before that at that time. But those kind of things kind of progressed.
Right.
Interesting. Again, didn't get explored here nearly as much.
Right. They only have an hour and 15 minutes. They got to be economical with how they move things.
Yeah.
Everybody just gets enough character development, and then we're on to something else.
So anyways, we got the Count who sneaks into Lucy's house to suck her blood, and she's pronounced dead at this point. And then we see Renfield is staying in Stuart's sanitarium. And basically, Dracula has like warped his mind to the point where he wants to eat like rats and like spiders. And that one classic line, he's like, "I want rats, thousands of them, millions of them," which is like really creepy. And then we're introduced to Van Helsing, and he did a blood test on Lucy. He kind of concludes that he's dealing with a vampire, and Stuart calls this pure myth and superstition. And then Van Helsing responds, and I love this line. It's probably like my favorite line in the movie. He says, "The superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today." And then that's like almost in every supernatural like movie ever. And you always got like that skeptic, and you're not the person that believes. So it's kind of like a Mulder and Scully kind of thing. We cut the Renfield in his jail cell, and he sees Dracula like out in the yard, and he begs him not to hurt Mina, and he ends up biting her neck anyways. Doesn't kill her, but Mina, he does it a little bit to kind of like kind of where you can like control her and she become a vampire herself. And Mina described this experience as a dream to Van Helsing, Stewart, and Harker, and they discover 2 holes in her neck, and they basically find out that the dream what actually happened. And then Harker asked Van Helsing what could have caused them, and then off screen the maid says Count Dracula's name, which is a clever thing, and then Dracula entering room, which is interesting. It was a really interesting way to kind of do that. One of the best like technical cinematic things they did in this movie.
Oh yeah, there's so many like camera moves and and like interesting blocking choices, especially for a movie that's made like 90 years ago. A lot of the times these early movies, especially when they first started coming out of the silent era into sound, like they wouldn't move the camera at all because there was so like the way it lighted and everything, like you were kind of locked in. They would shoot the scene, it would be like very stagey, and then you just cut to the next scene. And this does feel very, very cinematic in how it's presented.
I disagree. It looks like a teleplay to me.
Eh, I think they do enough interesting moves dolly wise to
Yeah,
make it interesting.
yeah. I'm just
Otherwise, it would be
like Frankenstein, like what James Reynolds did with Frankenstein or the
if
Mummy.
we're, yeah, if we're comparing those other ones,
It
yeah.
looked like a play to me, which I didn't really
Oh,
like.
for sure.
Yeah. And then Mina tells the Count about her dreams, and he says to her that he helps his grim tales and scare her. And then Harker opens up small case with mirror. Dracula's reflection doesn't appear. And they keep coming back to this. And this one's when like the characters start really getting suspicious here.
Hmm.
And then Mina is sent to her room. Van Helsing holds mirror in front of Dracula, and he slaps it out on the doctor's hand. And then Van Helsing concludes that Dracula is the vampire that they're dealing with. Um,
No one suspected him before now. Like just
yeah,
like no one suspected this weird man from
yeah,
Transylvania came in. Yeah.
you got this guy from like Western Europe. He came into London, and like you don't question it at all.
Yeah. All of a sudden people start dying with strange wounds on their neck. This
Right.
guy's like slumping around in the shadows. They only see him at night. Van Helsing knew what vampires were at this point. He should have like maybe that Dracula guy.
Right. And then we got the classic line for one who hasn't lived a single lifetime, you're a wise man, Mr. Van Helsing.
Mr. Van Helsing.
Yep. You're a wise man, Van Helsing.
Mr. Van Helsing.
And then the thing about Bela Lugosi, he said every single syllable with a pause in it. So he was pretty much like the original Christopher Walken.
Mm-hmm.
And can you imagine Christopher Walken as Dracula? And he'd be like,
yes, I would love to watch a Christopher Walken.
Who hasn't lived a single lifetime. You're a very wise man, Mr. Van Helsing. Crazy.
I'd watch it. I'd watch that movie every day. If someone went in and redubbed this movie with Christopher Walken's voice, I'd watch it.
So, anyways, Dracula walked off the balcony and he kind of disappears. You only see him disappear because Harker goes through the balcony and of course Dracula's not there anymore, but he sees the wolf in the yard and it's implied that that's Dracula as the wolf. And Van Helsing explains to Harker that in Stuart that vampires can transform into wolves and more often bats. And Harker doesn't believe him. And Van Helsing says the strength of the vampire is that people will not believe in them. So Dracula lured Mina outside. So like, see, he got Mina right where he wants her. So he's trying to build like his vampire army here with the three wise Winfield and Mina.
So like he's got. I mean, he's basically just another wife for Dracula at that point. Like, so he'll have to carry another box with him wherever he goes next.
Get back to Stuart, Van Helsing, and Harker. Stuart points out that Dracula has to return to his resting home in order to survive. And Van Helsing suggests that he might have brought some of his native soil back. And then Renfield walks into the room, tells Stuart to trust Van Helsing because that's their only hope.
Trust. Go back to trust again and belief.
Yeah, because he knows what Dracula's capable of, and he automatically believes Van Helsing. Like he's seen this crap. My question is, how does Van Helsing know any of this? That's my.
They never explained that in this movie. I assume he is just a learned scholar and has traveled the world.
Right. So then Renfield begs Harker to take Mina away from there because again he knows what Dracula's capable of. Dracula flies into the room as the bat, and he's pretty much pissed off at Renfield for like ratting him out, or in this case, batting him out.
Was this when Renfield was talking? So he got out of the cell again, and then he's down there talking to Van Helsing and Harker and all of them. Is that the point, right?
Yeah, he enters the room.
Yeah. So I think he's being the distraction at that point, so that Dracula can get in there. So he's distracting him by telling this whole story. That's why the thing at the end where he's like, "It's already happened."
But he denies his involvement with the Count too. I remember.
He's lying. He's Renfield. He's crazy. He likes rats and he likes to eat bugs.
And then Van Helsing says, "You'll die in torment if you die with innocent blood on your soul." And then Renfield responds, "God will not damn a lunatic soul. He knows that the powers of evil are too great for those of us who with weak minds." Which is interesting.
Right. That is interesting. But is he a lunatic if he knows he's a lunatic?
Ooh. Yeah. But he's being controlled by a supernatural force. But then Renfield has the capability of fighting back against Dracula in his mind.
In his mind.
It's all about the power of the mind. But anyways, that'll be an interesting thing to think about. And then the maid comes in to announce that Mina is dead, quote unquote. Harker, Stewart, and Van Helsing run outside. Renfield laughs mantically at the maid as he collapses, and Renfield creepily claws over to the maid, draining her of her blood. I disagree with you with the boat scene being the creepiest shot of the movie. I think this is the creepiest shot of the movie.
Oh no, the crawl! I forgot about the crawl. The crawl is real creepy too.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, all the Renfield stuff is so much creepier than Dracula to me at this point.
So we find out that Mina is not dead.
She's just under the possession of Dracula at this point. I guess she's just lusting for blood.
Yeah, well, I think he's kind of overcome by the power of Dracula. Like, it's kind of like what he did with Renfield. He trained him of enough blood to like kind of control him. And I think Dracula kind of had that power too, to like mind control people.
He does it to Van Helsing. He does the thing, and Van Helsing's almost like, "Oh, I'm gonna come to you."
But here's my thing: can like Renfield do that since he's technically a vampire now? Or
See, I don't think Renfield's like full vampire, because he wants him to turn him. He's like, "You will turn me once I get you to where you want to go," and all that sort of stuff. So like he's still like he's basically like the familiar of Dracula at this point, with the promise of becoming immortal, if he does enough things for him.
Which is interesting because technically Lucy doesn't die. Van Helsing insists that they stay home because of her room is covered in wolfbane.
Wolfbane. Then the maid comes in.
I don't remember that part.
The maid comes in and takes down the wolfbane. That's how Dracula gets in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you notice, I think it's this scene, but do you notice like a piece of cardboard in front of like a lamp?
Is it?
Yeah, because James Roll from Cinemassacre did a whole video about this. Like, there being a cardboard in one spot. So I don't know if you sure saw that video.
I haven't seen it, but that actually makes sense. I mean, you can use any sort of things to like block light and stuff like that. I'm sure they probably, even though they were Universal, they had probably some money. They probably still just using tricks of the trade to kind of shape light any way they could.
Right, yeah, it's pretty funny. And then Van Helsing tells Harker that they have to find Dracula's coffin and drive a stake in his heart. Renfield tells Harker, Van Helsing, and Stewart that Dracula offered him unlimited rats to eat if he obeys the order till the very end. So Dracula comes in, hypnotizes Van Helsing. Van Helsing pulls out a crucifix and Dracula flees. And then Harker goes in to check on Mina. She starts to go on Dracula's mind control spell. And then Dracula kidnaps Mina and takes her to where he's been staying. Harker and Van Helsing go to save her. And then Renfield tells Dracula that he blew his cover. He gets killed for it. And which is funny.
Down the steps.
he basically kills Renfield. Which is
Hmm.
funny because you hear him scream in this version. Apparently back in the day, Renfield's scream was way too disturbing that they had to cut that out of earlier versions
Oh,
of this.
crazy! I didn't know that.
What was even crazier was apparently in Frankenstein, the part when the monster throws little Marie in the water.
Hmm.
That was way too disturbing. They have to cut that out.
Oh yeah, they cut that out too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the most iconic scenes in the movie.
Oh yeah, no, and I think it's what um humanizes and makes him more of a monster in that movie. Dracula basically doomed himself as soon as he killed Renfield. Like, how's he like sun's coming up? Like, how's he gonna get these boxes moved or anything like that? Like I guess he was just so angry that
Yeah,
Renfield betrayed him that he was just like, that's it. I'm gonna just
I didn't even think
snap
about
your neck.
that. Van Helsing staged Dracula's heart, and Mina is saved.
Yay.
Yep.
I did find it interesting that he used his own coffin as a stake. Like,
Oh yeah.
basically it was just like kicked his own coffin open and then staked him, which we never get a good staking. I thought I could have swore
Well,
that we
again,
get
it's
to see
1931.
right. I could have swore in this one though. We got like at least the like the stake about to go into
Right.
like Lugosi's chest, but we never even see it. It's all off screen.
I don't know what Hammer Dracula this one is, but I like the one with Christopher Lee when like it's like that close up and like they stake him and then like his eyes just pop, just like open
Mhm.
up, like.
Oh yeah, no, that was a note I had on here. It's like to me, like the Hammer vampire ones, all the Christopher Lee ones from like the 60s and 70s are like my choice Draculas.
Let's go to the themes of this movie.
Okay.
What a theme that you caught on to in this movie?
I mean, the one that stuck with me earlier was that I talked a little bit about earlier is that and this is the first time I'd seen it in this for like thought about it when watching it this time was the idea of this sort of like high society man feeding on the poor, like feeding on the so like the rich people of the city feeding on like the peasants, which is basically Dracula feeding on the people who are like below him or beneath him, sort of thing, which I thought was interesting. Would you come up with?
My theme was science versus faith versus the supernatural. You
Hmm.
have three characters that represent all three of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Stewart, he was a man of science, and he did not believe in the supernatural at all.
Hmm.
Yeah, Dr. Van Helsing, he was a man of science and faith. And by having his foot in both worlds, he knows how to defeat Dracula. And he represents good.
Mm.
Count Dracula is a supernatural being who's immortal and feeds off the blood of other beings. And he also represents evil.
Hmm.
And like what we talked about in our top 13 horror villains and protagonists, this
Hmm.
is like one of them like the classic like hero villain dynamics.
Sure.
Because you have a force of good, someone who's he knows like the science behind vampires,
Hmm.
and he's also a man of faith, but I think it's more explored in like other versions of the story. And he goes up against Dracula, who's this immortal vampire who he had that thirst for blood.
Right. Well, he has to. Yeah, otherwise, he'll die. So it's self-serving in the sense that it's not like one of those maniacal, like I'm going to kill everybody sort of villains. Like it's in order for him to live, he has to continue to feed. He has to continue to kill. Like he has to do these things. Otherwise, he dies.
Right, and that's the thing about Van Helsing's interesting. Like I said, like he knows the science. Like I said, he knows the science behind
Hmm.
vampires, and he knows like because he knows so much about science and also the
Hmm.
supernatural. He knows that like when something like fishy with this blood test, like no, like we're not dealing with a normal person. We're dealing with a fucking vampire here, dude.
Vampire. Yep.
Yeah.
Vampire.
Did you ever watch the BBC version of Dracula on that was on Netflix? Like the
Was
three-part
it
one?
the Nosferatu one, like the spelled like a license plate? Is that the one you're
No,
talking about?
that's the Joe Hill one on Shutter.
Oh,
This is a
then no,
one.
I don't think so.
Yeah, this was the one. It was like a three-part miniseries. Um,
Okay.
I can't remember who was in it, but it was like from the BBC. That one was really good. actually gender swapped Van Helsing, which I thought was interesting. And
Okay.
it didn't feel forced because in this one, she's actually Van Helsing's actually a nun,
Hmm.
so it really delves into the good versus evil aspect of that,
Right.
which I really,
Okay.
really liked. And I actually really liked that character. Like probably that actress that played her was probably like my second favorite Van Helsing.
Okay. I assume behind the Anthony Hopkins one, probably.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Anthony Hopkins. Like, how can you not like Anthony Hopkins?
I don't know. Hugh Jackman's my favorite Van Helsing.
Really? You're not actually.
No, no. I hate that movie. That's terrible.
Oh no, I actually do like that movie. Like, I mean, it's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie.
Oh, I've only seen it once. I remember laughing a lot, but I don't know if it was intentional.
Right. My favorite part, one of my favorite parts in the whole movie is like completely stupid. Is when
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman tells his little partner all about like vampires and stuff like that, and then like he goes to sleep, and then and then the next day he wakes up and he's like vampires. So like so assuming that like Hugh Jackman and telling them about like vampires and werewolves and Dracula and all that shit. Like
Completely freaked him out.
They kind of had a dream about vampires, and he was so freaked out by this dream. Like when he woke up, he's like vampires.
Hilarious.
That's so funny. But I mean, it's a Steven Sommers movie. So what do you expect?
Right. This is It's the same guy who made The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, I guess. I don't remember what else Steven Sommers has made, but those are the only two that come to mind.
He did the Jungle Book movie too.
Oh, that's right.
Right, but if you watch the behind the scenes for the first Mummy, the Building a Better Mummy documentary specifically, he said that he loves the Universal monster movie. So like the fact that he was able to do Van Helsing, like he just must have had like a freaking field day with that
Oh
movie.
yeah, I assume so. This was after like he had success with The Mummy and everything. So I assume he was probably going to do, if Van Helsing had been successful, he may have done more of these sort
Right.
of like Universal horror inspired films.
Yeah. So I guess we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Because they're coming out with a horror comedy called Renfield with Nicholas Hoult as the title character, and
Okay,
Nicolas Cage is Dracula.
sign me up. Sign me up. I'm there for it.
I'm excited for this movie, and the logo looks so cool. It's like pretty much like the font for this movie.
That sounds great. I don't know anything about it. I saw Nicolas Cage's photo the other day when he's wearing that like red velvet suit and he's like super pale, and I was just like, it's gonna be good.
I'm excited for this movie. This movie's gonna be awesome.
I love Nicolas Cage. A lot of people hate him. I get why people hate him, but
Yeah.
Pig was one of my favorite movies from last year, and so I'm all in.
There has to be a part in this movie when Nicolas Cage as Dracula runs around London and he says, "I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire."
Have you ever seen Vampire's Kiss?
I never seen that.
Oh, you should watch Vampire's Kiss. It's good.
Is that the one where where he angrily recites the alphabet?
Yes,
Oh
that's
God.
the same one and the same. You should do yourself a favor and watch it at your nearest convenience. It's great.
I'll probably watch that soon.
Okay.
But anyways, guys, I don't know if I still said this on top of the video, but one new thing I want to do is I started a letterbox account connected to horror, sci-fi, and beyond. And what that's specifically going to be is going to be like a short review of whatever movie we cover on here. So at the end of the video, I'm gonna kind of tell you my review, kind of like my quick thoughts, real quick. Todd Browning's Dracula has excellent performances by Bela Lugosi and Dwight Frye, but doesn't have any of the cinematic stylings of Murnau's Nosferatu, nor does it explore the themes of the original novel as heavily as Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992,
Yeah,
and I give it
that's
3
fair.
stars.
That's a fair assessment. I would probably give it about 2.5 stars.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, I think there are some things that work really well in it. I think Lugosi's always great. I think Renfield is my top for this movie. I think there's some great like camera work in it and some like interesting like sets and matte paintings. But overall, it's just not very scary. And of the Universal horror ones, it's probably my least favorite one.
So, do you think with them making this Renfield movie, do you think this is going to be a whole nother like cinematic universe for the monsters, or do you think they're going to spin it off of like the Invisible Man movie with Elizabeth Moss, or is it going to be a whole nother thing? I don't know what they're going to do with the monsters.
I don't know. Hopefully it's just a standalone thing where it's sort of like the Invisible Man, where it can like stand on its own and doesn't have to be part of a bigger universe. Because that Tom Cruise Mummy movie was not great, and so
Well, I
yeah.
don't think that Renfield movie is going to be a part of the same universe as the Invisible Man, because it's going to be 2 different things entirely.
Sure.
But
sure. As long as it's its own thing, like that movie was, then cool.
Right. I think Renfield's going to be his own thing, I believe.
Perfect. That's great.
But I'm really hoping that because Ryan Johnson coming out with a Wolfman movie, I'm hoping that's going to be a part of the. I hope that's going to branch off of Invisible Man, hopefully.
Okay.
With that did like it did not make it obvious at all that like Frankenstein and Dracula and all these other monsters were part of that universe, but it opened up for a sequel, and I think they're going to make an Invisible Man movie.
Okay.
So I'd be kind of.
That sounds great. Yeah. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by that James Wan Invisible Man movie.
Yeah. I mean, you mean Lee Ronell?
What did I say? I said James Wan. Yeah, Lee Ronell. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
they worked with them on Saw. Yeah, they worked with them. They worked with each other a while. So.
Yeah. So if they ever build a cinematic universe around the Universal monsters, like more like a serious take, who would you see play Dracula in Van Helsing, Renfield?
Like if anybody ever. Ooh, who would be? I would want. Man, that's a hard one. Do you have yours off the top? Go, you go, and then I'll go.
Yeah, I got my Dracula and my Van Helsing. I don't have my Renfield yet.
Go for your Dracula and Van Helsing.
My Dracula, and this is like maybe if he's a little bit younger, I think he could work. I don't know how old this actor is, but Timothy Dalton.
Okay.
Perfect Dracula. He looks exactly like Bela Lugosi. He even had like that same smile, especially when he's older.
Sure.
I think he'd be like the perfect Dracula. Man, then I think I don't want to go. I still want to go quirky, but I don't want to go like comical like Hopkins. I want to go more like either like a recluse, like he's more like a hermit. The perfect person you go with is Michael Shannon.
Okay. Michael Shannon's
crazy.
Right. I would say that's a perfect choice, and I can't top that Van Helsing. I would just say that's probably a great Van Helsing for with Michael Shannon.
And you just go like all General Zod.
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh no.
I'm gonna find you, Dracula.
I would say that if you did Dracula again, I wonder if there's a way that we could. I wonder if there's a lady out there, like you did a gender swap on it, and try to update it that way.
Did have the Mummy. I think Dracula needs to be
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, of course, and then
trying to think of who would be the perfect one.
Also gonna have the Invisible Woman, like in this hypothetical world.
Sure. So if we could have a Invisible Woman, let's have a Dracula. I don't know. Draculine?
I disagree with that.
Countess Dracula?
Well, I mean, you can have like his wife as like a prominent character.
Countess Dracula, that's what I want. I want a Countess Dracula.
Yeah. But who would play her if he did a female Dracula?
Charlize Theron.
That would be a good pick.
I know, right?
Well, I think Angelina Jolie was rumored for The Bride of Frankenstein. and then Bill Compton was going to direct it, who did Gods and Monsters.
Okay.
With
Yeah.
McKellen, when he played
Gods and Monsters.
Whale.
Yeah. Right. Gods and Monsters is great.
Yeah, that was sad that didn't happen. That didn't happen because I know Bill Compton loves like
Right. Right. Maybe it will someday. Once Bill Compton's dead.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still attached to that or not. But anyways, guys, this has been Drew from Horror Sci-Fi Beyond. Over and out. Bye.